Welcome back to the Fun with Steve Locksmith channel. Our last video showcased this Yale Junior lock that has the oddest key and keyway. If we look at the key that I cut, you can see how odd that key cut and shape is. Well, as stated in the previous video, I didn't know exactly what kind of key would work down in this thing, and when looking down in it, I could see that there is kind of an odd something going on down at the bottom, and there's some what's called warding that is happening as you look down on the side of the rounded part. And that warding, as I will explain here, the warding is what you call the cuts or the shape of the keyway that exists, like what you see here, with the piece sticking out here and here, and it coincides with the side milling that happens on any given key. You can see this is a SC1, which is a Schlage. Now you see the difference in the side milling of a quickset style key. So Schlage, quickset. You can't make a quickset fit in a Schlage keyway because of that warding. The warding has to be in the correct spot, so the side milling on the key has to be in the correct spot. So you see in this, that's how that key fits easily and correctly down into that keyway. Well, much like the warding that you can see longitudinally with the keyway in our Yale Junior lock, the warding is actually latitudinally. So you have to have the cuts, the warding cuts on the side of the key. The key that normally, or the side of the key that is normally cut to put the pins, the bottom pins, in the appropriate position so they meet the shear line. This particular lock has no shear line, but it does have that warding down in it, so that you have to have something that is specifically cut that way to be able to have a operating key. So I took a key that I had in my stock to get something that would fit down into the keyway with enough room to work with. But as we can see, because this key is not cut, it's not able to engage or rotate. So you probably asked yourself, how did I figure out where to put these warding cuts and that center cutout to be forked to engage that piece down at the bottom? So what I did, I took my calipers, move these to turn them on with 0. Okay, we got a 0 reading. Let's wipe off the blade portion. Let me see, it's still showing up with 5, so let's 0 that out. Okay, alright, so we 0 that out, And on the bottom of your calipers, there is a depth gauge. So, doesn't matter usually what kind of, what brand it is. You have the ability to measure the depth from this point to this point, and it will show you the readout here. So what I did, I took this small tip and I ran it down into the side of the key, or the keyway, like so I can engage that farthest point down, and then I mashed this part down to give me the full depth of the key, which ended up being right at 1 inch, 1 inch and 14 thousandths, but we'll just round it off to 1 inch. So I first had to prepare my key by cutting off this tip, and then wherever I cut the tip off, to make it flat, I took and I put my depth gauge essentially up here. Then I made a mark at where this portion is, where it lays on the key. So I made a mark, and then I knew that that was the deepest point that my key would insert. So I ended up cutting with a Dremel grinding wheel or cutoff wheel this V-shaped notch in the end of the key to encounter that part. Well, the light's too bright. Here we go. Those two little things. It looks kind of like a little hog nose down there. Two nostrils. So I knew now that my key would insert into those little notches, but I still had to cut the boarding cuts, or these side cuts, on the key. And to determine that, I got the next deepest depth that I need to have, which touched on that center part that's down there. So I go to this side of the key, or keyway, and we want to make sure that that's not dropping down into those little nostril holes, we'll call them. This was a difficult part, especially trying to do this on a camera, but we push that down, and that gives us the depth of that, how deep that notch needs to be. So we come up here and we measure from our line that we had the total depth. So the total depth ended up being 1 inch. And I don't know if you can see where I had the mark on here or not. Maybe not. Okay. Marks are still present on this, but not the top mark. But anyway, ended up going to that top 1 inch mark, and then it gives us our depth that V notch had to be, and then I went on up in the keyway to that bottom boarding. You can see it right down in there, and I took my depth gauge again and kind of added it at an angle, and it gives us the top of that little warding to go there. So now we got a different depth of where the top of that warding cut should be. So that would essentially be here. And then we just know we cut down a little below it to give us full rotation of the key. Then we do the same thing, and you can kind of actually see that here a little better, where I take and I go into that point resting on the top of that part of the warding, and then bring the depth gauge down to roughly there. That gives us a depth of about 1/4 inch from this area to the top of that warding there, if that makes any sense. You can just barely see it, but so now we know the area here where we need to start, and then cut down the depth to give us enough area on both sides where we can turn that key. And once making that cut, and the V fits in the little hog nose area down at the bottom, and then our cuts on our key, our warding cuts, you can see they sit right in the area where that warding is. And if we turn the key and hold it, then we can see, hopefully, yeah, we can see the warding cut sits right where that piece was jutting out inside the warding, what would be called the warding, which allows the rotation, I can't see, of the key, which brings that latch down fully like it should from either direction. Hope this explains it a little better, how I got to all the cuts and the funky way that this key looks. We'll see you on the next video.